This week, leaders in nations such as Saudi Arabia, Argentina, Indonesia, Iran, Kazakhstan, and over 10 other additional countries intend to join the BRICS. BRICS are, of course, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. This new trading bloc would have over half of the world's population, 60+% of global gas reserves, and 45+% of global oil reserves, and often half or more of most raw physical global commodity market demand. Not taking this ongoing trend towards a more shared multipolar world order seriously would be a mistake for long-term investors, especially in the Western world. More developed G7 nations that include Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the United Kingdom, as well as the United States, should take note. Over the last 3 decades, just the 5 BRICS nations alone have surpassed the formerly dominant developed G7 nations in total GDP or gross domestic product economic output. Bloomberg had the following gold-related commentary on this week's BRICS meetings.
BRICS group meeting this year with foreign ministers from the 5 nations gathering in Cape Town today. Now, that comes ahead of a leader summit set for August. For more on this, let's go to Jennifer Zabazaja, our Africa correspondent who is in Cape Town. Jen, what are the priorities for the leaders meeting this week?
Yeah, Danny, I mean, it's really significant. As we know, BRICS was started back when a lot of these economies that encompass this organization were known as emerging economies. But of course, as we know, that's really grown in significance, and especially when we consider what the world is facing at this point in time. So when we look at the agenda, the official agenda, there's a few top line details that are going to be discussed this year, including delivering a mutually accelerated growth, sustainable development, and inclusive multilateralism. There's also some points about how BRICS, this grouping of nations, can create synergies between that of the G20. And of course, as we know, China, Russia, India, Brazil, and South Africa encompass a significant proportion of the future growth of the global economy. And so a lot of discussion is going to be had on how they can move forward in what they're calling a multipolar world. And as you mentioned earlier, there is potentially going to be discussions about a currency derived specifically for these BRICS nations. And especially when we think about the world as globally moving away from the dollar, we're seeing potentially discussions around whether or not BRICS can create a currency pegged to specific minerals, things like gold. And so that will be among the things that are discussed this week. But here in Cape Town, a number of foreign ministers, as you mentioned, the 5 from the BRICS nations, but then also a number of foreign ministers from nations from what they're calling the Friends of the BRICS. So that includes foreign minister from Argentina, from Indonesia, from Egypt, and from the UAE and Saudi. And so a lot of these other nations have been talking about whether or not it is time for them to be a part of it. And we'll see whether or not these 5 BRICS nations actually accepts them.
I have near no doubt that collective central banks have been buying this recent gold spot price dip, and this week my belief was confirmed by a survey which showed that about 1 in 4 central banks fully admit that they are actively acquiring more gold bullion for their nation's long-term reserves. Specifically in this World Gold Council survey, it is the emerging market nation central banks, many of which are BRICS or quote friends of the growing BRICS trading alliance, that are likely actively buying this current gold spot price dip. Over 7 of 10 central banks stated in this recent survey that central bank gold reserves will increase over the next 12 months. And this would be, of course, building upon last year, which produced a record size of official gold bullion buying in volumes over that year never before recorded in history prior over a 1-year time frame. Of course, this first quarter of this year, 2023, was already admitted to being 34% higher than the previous record-sized cumulative central bank gold bullion buying spree during the Q1 2013 gold spot price crash. Meanwhile, globally speaking, institutional investors remain asleep at their collective wheel, as they have collectively sold off much of their unsecured gold ETF holdings, and are thus being actively front-run by record-sized central bank gold bullion buying since the start of last year, 2022. To better understand where the world is headed, I strongly suggest watching what global central banks are doing in their collective actions. They have been and will likely continue going for the gold bullion in historic size as time progresses onward. And you can bet they're taking full advantage of recent gold spot price weakness by acquiring more gold bullion in volumes, only to perhaps admit to it later on, officially so. Hello, this is James Anderson on behalf of SD Bullion. Smash the like button if you enjoy these bullion market updates. And be sure to visit sdbullion.com/sweepstakes to enter our free 500-ounce Silver Eagle coin giveaway.
Want to win 500 Silver Eagle coins just like this guy?
Yeah, this is Kevin.
Hi, Kevin. This is Dr. Tyler Wall, CEO of SD Bullion. I'm calling to let you know that you won the SD Bullion giveaway of a monster box of 2022 Silver Eagles.
Unbelievable. That is awesome.
So click the link below for your chance to win.
Good luck to all of you out there who enter our free 500-ounce American Silver Eagle coin giveaway sweepstakes. The silver and gold spot price markets staged a rally just past the middle part of this week. Spot price trading sold off algorithmically, basically, on more phony official jobs report data from this morning. We'll get into conflicting data points regarding U.S. jobs in a moment, but first, the spot silver price closed this week. $23.59 an ounce bid, while the spot gold price finished just under $1,950 an ounce bid. The spot gold silver ratio fell slightly, closing at 82. Conflicting U.S. jobs related data this morning, as the official U.S. unemployment rate rose to 3.7% in May. Of course, those are the people that are actively looking for jobs. We don't bother counting people who've not been actively looking. As well, the U.S. economy supposedly added 339,000 jobs, according to official reports, which will likely be adjusted downwards later on. U.S. household survey, though, that showed a loss or a decline of 310,000 jobs. Spot prices, of course, sold off in the news, allowing those who are out there trying to acquire more bullion to do so at a discount to more relatively recently higher spot price levels. Surprise, not surprise, the played-out debt ceiling distraction has finally finalized. It's been put off until 2025. The U.S. government is now free to borrow and create the next rounds of infinite QE ad infinitum. 2 years from now, I expect the total U.S. federal debt level will be closer to $40 trillion than the somewhat $32 trillion it's at. Of course, it's never going to be paid off in real value terms, which is why world central banks are moving in record size into gold bullion currently. William Middlecoop reminds us what followed right after the last U.S. debt limit suspension in August 2019. If you recall back, that was when the Fiat Federal Reserve repo loan ramp fiasco bailouts began, and that program front-ran the COVID U.S. Treasury looting, which followed about 6 or 7 months after the fact in March and April of 2020. Now, based on the U.S. government's own debt-fueled projections, I suppose it's only a matter of time before mandated U.S. debt buying by the public becomes law of the land. The FDIC just updated their admitted banking system's unrealized losses through Q1 2023. Currently, they claim just over $500 billion of unrealized losses. And of course, we still have persistent price inflation abound, regardless of much higher interest rates currently. Total global debt levels have also increased, now updated to over $305 trillion. That's more than 3 times global GDP. And if you look, over half of the debt load is held by corporations, many of which will fail before those debts get paid off in respectable real value terms. Bankruptcies amongst largest companies are on the rise. We're currently drafting just behind 2010 levels thus far in 2023, but we're nowhere near where corporate bankruptcy levels might be heading if we're indeed headed into the second half of the 2008 global financial crisis that was papered over by cheap debt and unbelievably low negative real interest rates. Something akin to more than 3 times the levels of corporate bankruptcy volumes is not out of the question given where we've been in the past and where we are in terms of ridiculous, irresponsible corporate debt loads sitting on corporate balance sheets at the moment. In many major U.S. metropolitans, often more than 30% of the commercial real estate sits currently idle. I'm talking empty office buildings galore. Of course, we've not reckoned with those losses and/or bankruptcies yet either. And while a bear market rally in tech fueled by AI hype has been pumping on the NASDAQ of late, layoffs of human beings, workers who actually work in tech, thus far in 2023 are already ahead of last year's layoffs in 2022. This will end up being an all-time year in terms of lost jobs in the tech sector, and it's a sign that this current bear market rally in tech is just that. Artificial intelligence is not ready to rationalize a new tech bubble, especially with all the terrible fundamentals flying in our collective faces. U.S. credit card debt just passed $1 trillion, and the trend of increasing delinquencies is yet another sign that the U.S. consumer is being choked out by not having enough income to support their current lifestyles. Now, when we look out at the next few years of U.S. debt refinancing, I suppose one could hope for a recession and a rollback of currently high interest rate levels. But of course, that means many more U.S. workers will likely not have gainful employment in that scenario. Turning to the bullion market, strange news out of Australia's Perth Mint this week as the recently newly appointed CEO is stepping down as the Western Australian state of Perth launches a review of its ownership of this mint. There have been various scandals of late in the Perth Mint. I'm not going to sit here and list them all, but there's been a handful. But that's not stopped physical bullion buyers in Australia and around the world from buying record volumes of gold and silver bullion coins and bars over the last few years from the Perth Mint. Now, what's really going on behind the CEO stepping down and the state of Perth reviewing of the mint, that's anyone's guess at the moment. What they're telling you is probably not the truth. The registered levels of silver within the fractionally backed leveraged COMEX futures contract derivative market is back down to just over 28 million troy ounces. That's a very low level considering over the last 2 decades of where the supposedly deliverable silver pile has been before. Meanwhile, when we take our relatively strong fiat US dollar glasses off of late and look at where silver spot prices around the world are currently using a non-weighted 20 top GDP country fiat currency index, we can see the blue line representing the 20 largest economic nations' local silver prices averaged out this 21st century. It's basically been trending sideways, building a base over the last 3 years of time. Now, of course, the gray line is the fiat US dollar spot price that everyone constantly gawks at every day and gets worried over. But the bottom line is the top 20 nations in the world, the silver spot price is threatening to go to a record number very soon. And as the fiat US dollar eventually rolls over into its coming secular bear market for the ages, you can expect to see record silver spot prices in all 20 of these G7, BRICS, and quote, friends of BRICS nations not long after. That's all for this week's SD Bullion Market Update. Keep taking advantage of recent spot price weakness, and as always, take great care of yourselves and those you love.
If you enjoyed this content, be sure to give our video a thumbs up. To keep getting bullion-related news and industry insights, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Finally, hit that alert button so you know when we publish fresh content.